you can see on the screen, if you're not already a member of our hub team, EAS Primary English and Literacy Leads, it's the place where all of the materials from our network meetings end. So please feel free to either just drop me an email or to request to join the team if you're not there already. So, our afternoon session today. As we said back in the summer term at our network meeting, our last meeting when we were all in person together, the PL code, let me just pop that in, E007, boom. The focus for each of our network meetings during the year is going to rotate. So our focus in the summer was on speaking and listening, and what we're aiming to do now is to focus on reading in this session. So our programme is devoted to reading. I just want to alert you, if you're not already familiar with it, to a new Welsh Government toolkit addressing the national priority of oracy and reading. I'm very much hoping, although I haven't seen her come into the meeting yet, that a colleague from the Books Council of Wales will be joining us to share some opportunities available to schools in the coming year from the Books Council. We have 3 of our curriculum partner schools with us this afternoon who will be sharing aspects of their reading curriculum and advertising some of the events that they're going to be opening up to all schools to access later in the year. And I will give you probably quite a brief roundup of additional professional learning opportunities, both from the EAS, but also some cross-regional opportunities as well. And advertising as ever that our next meeting on the 21st of February again will be online with the focus on writing this time, and the link on the screen is to the ticket source so that you can book your ticket, and I'll talk more about that later. It's a brave new world. All of our PL and practice sharing now comes through Ticket Source, and it's a new booking system. We're all getting used to it, but we would really encourage you, even for network meetings, to book on with Ticket Source as the best way to ensure that you get all the relevant information. Okay. Success criteria in the PL brochure and advertising for all of our networks, they always remain the same. I hope to give you the opportunity to collaborate with your peers, and as we're back online, we'll be doing that through breakout, but we're trying to keep those rooms quite small so that you have an opportunity to say hello, introduce yourselves and talk to each other. That's an important part of the session. We're providing opportunities to share and reflect on practice with others. We have the practice from our curriculum schools to share today, but also we hope that you'll be open to talk to each other about what's going on in your own schools, knowing that every school has different priorities and is at a different stage in development. So, but it's always good to share. And the third aim, I'm going to provide you with some updates and information regarding national, regional and local priorities, but I am definitely the support act today. Okay. Earlier on this year, Welsh Government have made available a new toolkit, the whole school approach to oracy and reading. As you get the slides after this session, the link is on the bottom of the slide here. As you'll be aware, it's a national priority to raise standards in oracy and reading, and in particular post-COVID, when we know that in many cases for some of our children, oracy and reading particularly affected by their time away from full-time learning in the classroom, even if they had full-time learning at home. So the toolkit has been designed to offer a range of resources, case studies and reading material on all things oracy and reading, and I think it's fair to say that it's at its starting point now, and the intention is that information and resources will be added regularly to this toolkit. just to show you the contents page, to give you a flavour of the toolkit if you haven't had a chance to look at that yet. It's certainly the sort of thing that I expect you will dip into over time and perhaps go back to over time when you're focusing on anything to do with oracy and reading. And as you can see, the content so far are predominantly sharing links to materials from Curriculum for Wales and supportive guidance on Hub that's already there. But there are sections, for example, the support for practitioners and involving parents and carers, which are very practical parts of the site and which will develop over time. And as you can see, each of those sections provide supporting resources for schools, for teachers, for parents, and case studies from schools. And that section in particular, we know will grow and will become more and more a place where information from schools and sharing of practice from schools will be gathered, many of which we know will come from this region because we are aware of a huge amount of excellent work that's already going on. So we anticipate that we will, and Welsh Government, the focus for each of our network meetings during the year is going to rotate. So our focus in the summer was on speaking and listening, and what we're aiming to do now is to focus on reading in this session. So our programme is devoted to reading. I just want to alert you, if you're not already familiar with it, to a new Welsh Government toolkit addressing the national priority of oracy and reading. I'm very much hoping, although I haven't seen her come into the meeting yet, that a colleague from the Books Council of Wales will be joining us to share some opportunities available to schools in the coming year from the Books Council. We have 3 of our curriculum partner schools with us this afternoon who will be sharing aspects of their reading curriculum and advertising some of the events that they're going to be opening up to all schools to access later in the year. And I will give you probably quite a brief roundup of additional professional learning opportunities, both from the EAS, but also some cross-regional opportunities as well. And advertising as ever that our next meeting on the 21st of February again will be online with the focus on writing this time, and the link on the screen is to the ticket source so that you can book your ticket, and I'll talk more about that later. It's a brave new world. All of our PL and practice sharing now comes through Ticket Source, and it's a new booking system. We're all getting used to it, but we would really encourage you, even for network meetings, to book on with Ticket Source as the best way to ensure that you get all the relevant information. Okay. Success criteria in the PL brochure and advertising for all of our networks, they always remain the same. I hope to give you the opportunity to collaborate with your peers, and as we're back online, we'll be doing that through breakout, but we're trying to keep those rooms quite small so that you have an opportunity to say hello, introduce yourselves and talk to each other. That's an important part of the session. We're providing opportunities to share and reflect on practice with others. We have the practice from our curriculum schools to share today, but also we hope that you'll be open to talk to each other about what's going on in your own schools, knowing that every school has different priorities and is at a different stage in development. So, but it's always good to share. And the third aim, I'm going to provide you with some updates and information regarding national, regional and local priorities, but I am definitely the support act today. Okay. Earlier on this year, Welsh Government have made available a new toolkit, the whole school approach to oracy and reading. As you get the slides after this session, the link is on the bottom of the slide here. as you'll be aware, it's a national priority to raise standards in oracy and reading, and in particular, post-COVID, when we know that in many cases, for some of our children, oracy and reading particularly affected by their time away from full-time learning in the classroom, even if they had full-time learning at home. So the toolkit has been designed to offer a range of resources, case studies, and reading material on all things oracy and reading. And I think it's fair to say that it's at its starting point now. And the intention is that information and resources will be added regularly to this toolkit. Just to show you the contents page, to give you a flavour of the toolkit, if you haven't had a chance to look at that yet, it's certainly the sort of thing that I expect you will dip into over time and perhaps go back to over time when you're focusing on anything to do with oracy and reading. And as you can see, the content so far are predominantly sharing links to materials from Curriculum for Wales and supportive guidance on Hub that's already there. But there are sections, for example, the support for practitioners and involving parents and carers, which are very practical parts of the site and which will develop over time. And as you can see, each of those sections provide supporting resources for schools, for teachers, for parents, and case studies from schools. And that section in particular, we know will grow and will become more and more a place where information from schools and sharing of practice from schools will be gathered, many of which we know will come from this region because we are aware of a huge amount of excellent work that's already going on. So we anticipate that we will, and Welsh Government in particular, will be coming to us, to you, to share practice in the coming months and years. I think that'll be a great repository. Something which is already mentioned in the toolkit are some of the resources that come from the Books Council for Wales. In particular, the reference to the Summer Reading Challenge and resources for parents and for children when they're not in school hours. And the Books Council for Wales provides quite a range of resources for us in schools as well. So with regards to our partner schools for the next 2 years, we are delighted, and through a process of application in the summer term of this year, we now have 7 primary schools that are our curriculum partner schools for English and literacy for the next 2 years. Bless them. So over the course of the year, all of our schools will be represented and will present at one or several of the network meetings. And this afternoon, we have 3 schools who will be sharing the work that they do in their school. And today, with our focus on reading, I'm hoping, I know that Lucio is in the meeting. We have asked representatives from Pentrapoeth Primary School to talk to us a little bit about the work that they're doing in their school to develop reading in the curriculum. Lucio, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Mr. Taylor's just about to join us as well.
Catherine, if you tell people what it is that we're just going to do in a brief 10 minutes, yeah?
I've set the scene that we're looking at reading and curriculum for Wales, and you are going to share your approach in the school, Dean. Am I right?
Yeah, and I'm going to go a million mile an hour. If anybody wants anything or anything afterwards, then please feel free to ask. And remember, it's just our approach. Everybody has their own approach around this, and everything's as good. And if you're anything like me, when you go to anybody else's school or listen to a presentation, you just magpie and steal 1 or 2 good ideas and think, I want to have a little look at that, or oh, that's better than what we're doing. Can you come and help me with that? So ask any questions as long as they're not really difficult, but I'll try and race through. And Lucio is going to finish off, and I'm going to jump back into my meeting. Lucio, if you could just scroll up. And I did say to Catherine, I've done this in Word. You can tell I'm not very IT savvy with Lucio, so we're going to scroll up. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Can everybody see
Yes,
that?
yes, we
Well in
can.
there?
Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay. So our vision for reading, I won't read it verbatim, but obviously part of one of the more core essential things when they come to school is acquire the skill of reading. And I trained as a reading recovery tutor back in the day, about 25 years ago, and I did the job that Catherine's doing now as a literacy advisory teacher many, many years ago across Blaenau Gwent and other authorities. But what we want for children is for them to become confident, fluent readers. And at Pentrapoint, we want them to have a love of reading, and we want them to at least leave our school with a reading level that matches their chronological age. And if not, that we've got processes in place to intervene and to move them on. So if you just scroll up a little bit, Luch, I'm going to say he's like my little buzzer there. Luch is next to me, so really well. So the definition that we use at school here comes from Marie Clay. And that definition, to me, sums up the strategies that we utilize around reading. And reading is a problem-solving, message-getting activity that increases in power and flexibility as practice. I'm sorry if it sounds a little bit about like a lecture, but I wanted to give you the whole strategy so you can see the practical things that come from it, because everything that we do is embedded in our strategies. We've got a culture strategy of safeguarding, a culture of learning, and this sits within our culture document. So some of the quotes there as well, you know, I've stolen ideas from every book I ever read, everything but that's our core definition, because there are two strands. Reading is about problem solving, acquiring either phoneme awareness and phonic awareness and the word sentence, the problem solving that goes to do the mechanics and processing of reading. And it's the message getting, which is the comprehension, because we give children a skill, a concept, knowledge, we get them to understand something, which means that they believe in it. If you want to scroll up a bit, Luke's the net page. So I want to try and give you a simplistic view of how we do it. So in terms of our teaching, we utilize a range of strategies, but we have a program that works around understanding that phonological awareness and a discrete phonics program. Kath will remember, like I will, and many of you will, about in the 90s and the 2000s when the literary strategy and all that was around. There was a huge amount of research that went on. Does precision phonics have the biggest influence over other strategies? I believe in a balanced program, but of course, a robust teaching program of phonics. And we use Read, Write, Inc. in our school. Other phonics schemes were available. When I first started teaching in my year one class, I had Letterland, and that was superseded by Jolly Phonics. There's a whole range of commercial schemes, but it's all about how you teach those phonemes, those sound pictures, and how you acquire those together. And you can see when I come onto the house that I'll show you in a moment, the two strands of the house in the Endowment Education Foundation drive our philosophy. Luke, if you want to stick it up for me a bit, and then I'm going to leave. Right. Precision. Reading is about the teaching of precision. So in everything that we do, in all aspects, it's about that zone of proximal development. Good old Vygotsky. There's no point doing things with children unless you are actually moving them on and showing progression. One of the key principles of our reading strategy is to make sure that children progress, whatever that looks like, in terms of our curriculum for Wales at whatever level, but they move on that next step. And it all happens in that zone of proximal development. The whole of Vygotsky's range is important in terms of the reading diet that we get, whether or not it is around guided group reading, reciprocal reading, whether it's around reading at hard level, instructional level, or an easy level. The whole wide program that is important for children to have that big diet, but we make the biggest impact in that zone of proximal development. Good old Vygotsky. If you scroll up a bit, Luke. Thank you. Am I going a bit too fast for you guys? Because I know I do speak quickly, but I'm conscious that I'm also conscious that Kath will cut me off abruptly in mid-term. So there I said about the range. I want to tie it back into what we believe about learning here, because reading isn't a subject on its own, it's a skill on its own, but it's integral within our curriculum design. So we use a model in our school of metacognition, and we use it and apply it to reading the same way. So if you look, it's a bit small, but in the corner, children are either on the shore, they don't understand anything, they're paddling, snorkeling, diving, or deep sea diving. That's based on solo taxonomy and the research around that. We've gone, Luke, now. What's going on here? You're trying to make it a bit bigger. The world's going, no, nobody can see it. So in each of those charts, we'll show you our depth of learning on the corner. The next one of this range of independent strategies that we use in reading and everything else in the classroom, whether or not they send up a flare, they have a rubber ring. Can you make it a little bit larger, Luke?
I tried. I just messed up your presentation though. Sorry.
That's,
There we
that's,
go.
that's fine. That'll be fine. That's fine. And then we've got our qualities which apply to it, and we've got learning continuums within schools. So, you know, that applies to reading as it does to everything else. So we want to check with children all the time about how the depth of the reading's going and how much they're making progress. Scroll up a bit, right? Luke, to me. I'm going to be 3 minutes and I'm going to hand over to you and I'm going to disappear. So our teacher methodology. There's a range of things in our school. I know Kath probably is going to mention to you later, when we open up our doors to you, we're going to invite people in to come and look at how we handle reciprocal reading, one of the higher order reading skills. And there's a very good video I joked with Kath about me back in 1990, and it's a VHS video being for the BBC Wales, and I've got hair like Peter Andre, floppy hair back in the day, much younger, teaching with a group of children around those elements of that. So we won't be showing that, but you're very welcome to come and have a little look at what we do with our children in school. All of these strands are important. Individual reading, and those who are teaching progression step 1 will know about how important it is to intervene at that right level before they can read in a group and demonstrate model. Shared reading, group reading, group guided reading, reciprocal reading. And if you go back to, don't scroll back up, Luke, because I don't want you to lose the part, but that range, if you take a running record of a child and find out where they are with that, they need a diet of all these things: hard, instructional, and easy level. So our strategy is driven by making sure that the diet is rich, that children, the one chance child, has every opportunity to make sure that they are accessing that reading diet. Next one, Luke. Has he disappeared?
I'm still here. Can you not see the next slide? Yeah.
Right, okay. I learned how to do this circular thing on the weekend for the very outside. So if you look at the Education Endowment Foundation and you want to look at any of the latest research, that's important. In early years, you can see the link between oracy and the acquisition of phonics is right at the forefront of all the work that's gone on. Not only, and it's been recognised in the latest ESTIM reports as well, but you will see that development of reading is based on oracy. And all the time, we are focusing on independence. When we come to vocabulary in a minute, that's important, but really that focus between having a blended approach. Because in England, at one time, good old Michael Gove recommended that they did phonics and nothing else. Children can bark at sounds and bark at print, but they need to be taught independent. There's other cues around context and syntax and all of that when you're teaching a child to read. And that's what I recommend the reading recovery program to anybody, because it's one of the best things I ever did. And in our school for intervention now, it sums all of that up. Scroll up a bit more, Luke. So at Key Stage 2, again, you'll see the development of that and the research there. Is it that you're not there, Lucio, or is it that it's not moving?
Do you want me to move again?
Yes, please.
Yeah. There we go. Brick house.
I can't. I want Key Stage 2. It's not moving on mine. Is it moving on everybody else's screen? Ah, there we are. So again.
Yes, it's moving for us, Dean.
Brilliant. So what you'll see, the recommendations for those, I know this has got Key Stage 2 and is England orientated, but the research is the same. It's about the age of the child and it's about child development in reading. There are key links between the language capability that children acquire as they move up progression step 2 into those reading capabilities and then the teaching of comprehension. Because if we focus on Bloom's taxonomy as the core driver around our questioning in school and our understanding, but it's that understanding that goes back to the definition that they've got the problem solving, all the decoding skills, all the phoneme to get it understanding. I'm rushing, Luke, but go up another one.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So there's my house. It's on the education. Have you seen this? Has anybody seen this before? Kath, have you seen this?
Yeah, we've been using this in training. It's a lovely result. It's the equivalent. It's the
Brilliant.
modern equivalent of Scarborough's reading rope, really, isn't it? Yeah.
Isn't it just? Yeah, brilliant. So 2 sides of the house ties in with our definition. Down the left-hand side, that problem solving, all of that stuff. The right-hand side, the getting at meaning. So that's why I use that definition here, because it helps the team define each of those things. So, and we unpack that with all of our training and the strategies that we have. Luke, if you scroll up a little bit again for me, and I won't do this in detail the next couple of slides, and then I'm going to hand over to Luke to talk a little bit about the practical things that we do at school, because that's probably what you're more interested in than this. But I wanted you to know that a holistic strategy and reciprocal reading sits within a clear defined strategy that's been a huge amount of PL over the years. So again, the essential components of reading, the phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary and fluency, all to get a comprehension and understanding. Children who are reading, lifelong readers. We have children at our school that love reading. Kat's been in, she's talked to our children, they love reading, they articulate, they're able, they've got a passion and desire for that. And that happens because of the support they get at home, but also is the ethos that we create within school. On to the next one, Luch, and then I'm going to let you scroll through to take over from me, and I'm going to disappear. All right? Thank God you say. Scroll one more slide. So what I've done with the national reading is looked at all the latest research. So if you wanted a snapshot to write a reading strategy for your school, what is the detail? I've tied in some of the stuff from the National Reading Scheme in with the EAS to sit behind our strategy as a synopsis that shows that we have research-based education that stands behind the actual practical things of our reading scheme, our intervention, our assessment, all the things that we do. So scroll up just through the next 4 or 5 slides. You'll see I shall give them all to you. I'll send them via Kath when I put them in about 4 months. About phonics, what the research around phonics is, and we use Read Write Inc. Other schemes are available. Johnny Phonics, Letterland, Thras, wherever it is that you've got there. Even through, I remember once in Sovereign Primary School, I think one of the teachers wrote their own scheme of phonics back in the day in Blind Web. But as long as it's the picture sounds and it goes to the actual teaching of systemic and incidental, implicit and explicit phonics, it doesn't matter. The benefit for us for Read Write Inc., because we used a place called Reading Reflex prior to that, and Read America and stuff that we researched, is that you've got the resources when you teach it in terms of reading and application. I've got another couple of slides, Luch, and then I'm going to leave you to get on with it. Also, those teaching of those tricky words that are not phonically plausible, that's in the next couple of slides. We scroll, keep going up till we get to the panels. We get to our progression matrix C.
There we go.
So all the research is there. Importance around vocabulary, the teaching of vocabulary and understanding. Keep going up, keep going up. You can have all of this and you can read it. You don't need to listen to me, but it's important that obviously comprehension for us at understanding. We use Bloom's taxonomy, the questioning stems, the depth of knowledge that we get through reading records. Reciprocal reading, if you're not aware of that process, it's about, if you like, it's a step on from guided reading. It's a research-based thing that promotes independence for children to acquire and take ownership of their own reading and develop and further develop their higher order reading skills. And moving up, Luch, to the next couple, we've got a couple of slides on characteristics of what early reading is according to Eston and development of that. The next one, higher order reading skills, I believe. Yeah. Keep scrolling, Luch. And then I'm going to go after, right. So as a cluster in Basleg, for purpose type planning, we've produced matrices which show what does independence in planning look like and progression look like in reading. So across the progression steps, which I haven't got on the top of that capshot there, but again, I can send those for you. What does progression in reading look like broadly? Now, I know you've got that under progression in the documents, but we've got a standard that we expect all of our children in Basleg cluster to do right up through to progression step 3. And I know Matt and the team in Basleg at the moment are working on progression step 4 and 5 and developing this further. But we have broad, expectations of what children should be doing across the board. And then what we've done as a school in the next couple of slides is we've now put together a grid. If you scroll it up, Luch, and then I'm going to disappear. Right, so you will see around progression step 1, that one side of the house, what does development look like in the teaching? The other side of the house, what are the strategies in terms of comprehension across the progression step? And as it goes right up to year 6, there are different ones around that. I really am going to shut up now and disappear. Kath's clapping her hands. I wasn't too long, wasn't too verbose. And don't roll your eyes, Kath, because you have teeth in the back of your head. I can see it. So I hope that was what you wanted. And Luch is going to talk about how we bring that all into play in Pentrapoint. And I will share that with you to share to people.
Thank you so much, Dean. We really appreciate your time. And hello to everybody in the background. Diolch to you as well.
I'm leaving, Luch. Okay. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Diolch yn fawr. I've got a horrible job of following up after the inspirational and enthusiastic Mr. Taylor. I'm just going to talk about how we start with our reading strategy from the basic, from very beginning of school. So in nursery, and we're looking at pop art and going from that. From the pop art side, then, like Dean said, we use Read Write Inc, but we use it as like almost an intervention. So we're pulling children out, and depending on where their ability is, we're challenging them at the blending, even at this early stage Or if it's children who don't know any sounds, we're then looking back at the pop art and looking at sounds of phonics. We use the book clubs then, which is online books, as well as physical books, and we use the PM books then in school. But obviously, my favourite time of the day is at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, where children are bringing in their own stories, their own books, and we get to read them as story time. And it's my favourite part of the day, especially in reception. And we try doing that throughout the whole school. Then Mr. Taylor's got his 50, 75 and 100 reading challenge, which is linked to the Lemov's research, and it's all based on, depending on the year groups and the syntax of the actual books and the challenging books. And then once the children have got some selections there on our website for each year group, and the children absolutely love it. They come in and Mr. Taylor's got a lovely sticker for them then, and he used to have a reward, but with budgets, it's a little bit different now. When we come into Pension Point, like I said, though, we use the Read Write Ink scheme as not in its whole approach. We use the best bits of the Read Write Ink scheme. So we use like really a 20-minute intervention with a group of 6 to 8 usually, and we're really trying to develop the children with where they are. And then from that, we use Read Write Ink all the way up to year 2, and then we start challenging the children by group guided reading, and like Mr. Taylor said before about all the other types of reading, reciprocal reading, child-led reading, and class reading. We've done a lot of research recently, and we've done a lot of auditing of our books to try making it more diverse, and opening it up for the new curriculum and the new world really, and making everybody feel welcomed and accepted in our school, which I think through literature is a lovely way of doing it, and it really opens the children's minds to what our whole world looks like. Catherine, was there anything else that you wanted me to speak about with reading? Because I know Mr. Taylor covered quite a lot.
He did. No, that's fantastic, Lucio. I mean, obviously your school will be providing 2 different opportunities for people to visit later in the year. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. So that just gives a lovely overview, which is absolutely great. Diolch, Lucio.
We've got Isaac Blake, who represents the Romani and Gypsy community, Elin Williams, the Communications Officer for Disability Wales, Stonewall Cymru, and also practitioners that you may be familiar with also. And as I said, their guidance and help has been so beneficial to ensuring that we're selecting the appropriate titles for adaptation, and also identifying the themes to develop the 10 original books as well. So their feedback has just been paramount. So this is just a rough idea of the timeline. So so far we're managing to stick quite closely to it. So as I said, we've commissioned the 10 original books. We're just waiting upon the 30 Welsh adaptations for Welsh Government to come back to confirm that they're happy with the choices. And then we'll appoint a panel then for the education resources. So if any of you are interested to be a part of the panel, we'd greatly receive if you get in touch with us and express your interest. As I said, it's really paramount for us that we're developing these resources and that they fulfill your requirements, and that you're able to use them in the classroom easily, and that they are age appropriate and specific for the learners as well. So please get in touch if you're interested. And then hopefully by this time next year, we will be publishing the 10 original books, both in Welsh and English. And then in January, then the 30 adaptations will be published. And then hopefully then in June, the resources will be developed. So some of them will be placed on Hub, and then others you'll be receiving hard copies. And then in September 2025, the distribution of 50 books will be hopefully arriving schools across Wales. So as I said, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. And then one of the teachers in the call-out groups actually was just referring to this project. So this was the project Caru Darllen Ysgolion. Love reading, schools love reading, and it was an immensely huge project whereby just under 75,000 books were distributed to children across Wales, where they were just allowed to freely choose the book that they wanted. It wasn't given to them. They were set out in schools on World Book Reading Day. We've had such lovely picnic days where they just put them out on blankets and children were allowed to choose them, as well as then for the secondary sector, a book token worth £7, and then bookshops communicated with the schools to hold pop-up shops for the secondary children then to choose again. That was a really important element, to choose the books that they wanted to spend their £7 book token on. As well as that, then we supplied over 66,000 books to food banks, and the feedback has just, once again, it's just been overwhelming. How touching, families just getting in touch, just overwhelmed with the quality of the books, and again the element of choice. And then the book 50 pack has been greatly received by schools, because again, it was a brilliant opportunity to celebrate diversity. So that was the main focus, and just also to be able to enrich the libraries and the school libraries and the school the shelves within the classrooms, sorry, just to ensure that they have a really good selection of books celebrating diversity. So Arad, a company, have just finished their evaluation work of the project itself, and the findings have been really positive, especially for children in deprived areas. The feedback, once again, as I said, has just been overwhelming and really refreshing. So moving forward now, we're hoping that Llywodraeth Cymru, Welsh Government, will be able to fund a similar project again within the future. So fingers crossed we'll be able to persuade them, but we do realise, of course, that it's quite a difficult time financially. So we'll see what will come. Okay, and then on to the Book Slam. So maybe some of you are familiar with the Book Slam, previous reading competition. This year actually was a brilliant opportunity whereby we had the opportunity just to stand back and look at elements that were successful within the project and elements that possibly needed to be tweaked. So moving forward, we're continuing with the same name because we think it's really punchy and it works well. It'll be a competition available for children within years 3 up to year 6, and in the same format as the past, you register to participate, and then you compete on a county level, and then if you're successful within the county level, you're then invited on then to the national level. The key benefits are just really refreshing to hear what the previous head teacher was saying about getting children hooked on reading, their long-term attitudes and love towards reading. Just being able to provide practitioners with a variety of activities and different ideas to be able to embed love for reading within the classroom, as well as achieving elements of the curriculum as well. So the pack, even if you don't want to actually compete, I think it's worthwhile registering just to get the resources because they're so brilliant. And then we're also going to work quite closely with the libraries across Wales to make sure that they're aware of the titles. So if you don't have the funding to purchase the books, please go to your local library and ask if you can borrow them, because they may well have enough copies to supply yourselves as well as other schools in your area. So here we are. This is hot off the press. The books which have been selected for next year's Book Slam. So as you can see, there's a huge variety there, celebrating people such as Connor Allen, who was Children's Laureate last year. Books from Firefly, from Riley, books celebrating Wales. You've got information reference books there, poetry books, as well as fictional books. So a real wide range for all sorts of readers out there. So I hope you agree it's an interesting title. So as I said, hopefully information regarding registering will be with you just after half term. So please, feel free to register. There'll no obligation. People won't come after you asking for you to compete because you possibly just want to just have the resources, and that's quite all right by us. But please, again, as with any of our projects, we really welcome any feedback. So if you particularly like an element of the resource or think it can be improved in any way, please just let us know. So register download the pack, contact your libraries if you don't want to purchase them, or your local booksellers. Maybe strike up a deal with them if you want to order a few copies, and then just have fun with it. Involve the whole class if you like, or just small groups, and just the video clips of children showing their advertisements, persuading people to read the particular book was a really, really lovely element of the previous book slam. So it's one we really particularly enjoy when the videos start coming through. So that's another element which we decided to keep, because it's highlighting the skill of using digital skills as well as oracy and persuading. A fantastic way of raising children's confidence as well. So the national round then, what a slight tweak to the previous one is 4 members will be called upon to discuss the book as in previous rounds. But what is slightly different this year is that 2 members will also be invited to draw a new front cover for a book. So we're giving the opportunity for children who are possibly not confident verbally, but and on an oracy level, but possibly are amazing in illustrating and drawing pictures. So to give them an opportunity to draw them in. Yes, it is a profession, and you can live in Wales and be an illustrator and work on and developing books and working with publishers. And in the same way, then 2 members then for the team who will then be responsible for writing a blurb. So again, they might be shy individuals, but brilliant with their writing skills. So this is a new element for this year, and we're really, truly excited about it. And as you can see, there are brilliant prizes for the winners for the national round as well, which will be held in Aberystwyth about June time next year. Just want to quickly mention about World Book Day. Thank you to those of you who completed the questionnaires. The questionnaire went out, I think it was back in the spring term. So we've sifted through all of the responses, and it's been really refreshing to see the love and compassion towards the £1 books and the children, encouraging families who come from deprived areas, who are possibly they can't afford books, but just be able to spend their £1 token is really beneficial. Following the feedback from the questionnaires, one of the things that needs to be taken into consideration is the timing that we're celebrating World Book Day UK. And as a result, we've decided to develop a new resource, which will be looking at celebrating World Book Day UNESCO, which is celebrated on the 23rd of April. So it's about giving schools the opportunity. Possibly they want to keep to World Book Day UK and celebrate around St David's Day, which is totally fine, but possibly schools would also welcome the opportunity to celebrate at a less hectic time, with less emphasis on the dressing up. As we're seeing in supermarkets, they're going with the branding for dressing up, or you see parents rummaging through the fancy dress box, and it has nothing to do with a child's favourite book. So really homing in on celebrating the love of reading and their favourite book. So that's the aim of the resource, which we'll be sharing with yourselves for celebrating World Book Day UNESCO. So we'll tell you a little bit more about that closer to the time. Then this year's Summer Reading Challenge has been hugely successful. We've had so many libraries just delighted with the response of children coming in. I was, funnily enough, in a meeting last week where the gentleman who worked in the library was saying that children were coming in about twice a day. We're trying to complete it. So I don't know if it was just the theme, because it was more of a sporty theme, I'm not sure, but it was hugely successful. So thank you to you as practitioners. If you were involved in highlighting and promoting and encouraging the children to participate in this challenge before the summer holidays. So we're already in discussion with the Reading Agency for celebrating again next year. And then the Gwobrau Tir na Nog. So a new element which has been hugely successful this year was the addition of the Reader's Choice, whereby children were allowed to select their favourite from the shortlisted books. So there's usually a Welsh category for the primary sector, a Welsh for the secondary sector, and then an English category which run across both secondary and primary sectors. For the 30 schools that registered first to participate in the Reader's Choice, they were actually gifted with the selection of the books which are on the shortlist. And we don't expect you to read all of the books. You could just read chunks of the books with the children. And then the main aim is just to get their vote for their favourite book. And then you contact ourselves, and then we tally up the votes, and then we actually reward the author with the Reader's Choice. There's like a little small plaque for them. And the authors this year were absolutely thrilled. So as you can see on the screen there, The Mab by Max Lowe and Eloise Williams and Matt Brown were the successful winners for this year, and they were so thrilled when we got in touch, because I think it meant a lot to them that the readers had chosen their book. So I'm going to say just keep an eye out on our newsletter for information about the Reader's Choice and if you want to register to participate. But we're also quite active on Instagram as well, so, and also X and Facebook. So it might be worthwhile following us, Llyfrau Cymru, Book Council Wales, if you want to receive relevant information. And here it is, the newsletter. So again, if you want us to email this directly to yourself, at the moment it's currently going via the head teacher to your school, so it might be getting lost in other emails. As we well know, my husband is a head teacher and he's just inundated with emails every day. So if you want us to email this directly, please pop your email in the chat and I'll make sure that I make a copy of it, and then this will come directly to yourselves. Then you won't need to go via others in the route. Or if you want, just tell Kath, and then Kath can share your emails with myself, whichever is easiest for you. But the purpose of this termly newsletter is just to update practitioners about the different projects, opportunities, new recent publishings, things that may be interesting, may be of interest to you, and also competitions for the opportunity to win books. So as I say, it's once a term, so we won't be like bombarding you once a week or anything like that with emails. Just a brilliant opportunity to keep you up to date. And I'm just going to quickly fly through another project which might be of interest to yourselves, because it's a project aimed at booksellers, but for strengthening the relationship between booksellers and schools and authors. So if you would like an author visit, please contact your local bookseller, because they might be aware of this project and they can then make a request for funding. So it wouldn't involve any contribution from yourselves. This would be free of cost for you, and then they'd be able to contact then the author to either come to yourselves, or that you as a classroom would go down to the shop and be able to hold the session within the shop. They can also organise a pop-up shop in your school if you want to at the same time, and the author can do author signing and a workshop and so forth with the children. It's a really, really brilliant opportunity. So it's quite new, it's quite fresh. There's an author directory which comes as part of it. So maybe if you don't want to go via the shop route and just want to contact the author directly, again, the author directory is there for yourselves if you want to have access to a wide range of authors that would be happy to come to your schools. So that's just worth noting quickly there, okay? Teachers Love Reading then is a new pilot scheme for this year, whereby practitioners in Ceredigion and Denbigh and Carmarthenshire, just this year, hopefully next year we'll be able to open it out. It's very, very similar to RTRP, which Kath and Leanne are holding, whereby we invite teachers to groups to discuss their love of reading, but also to highlight new books that have been recently published, and for them then to go away and enjoy those books within their classrooms with their children. So it's just a brilliant opportunity to develop an awareness of the different books that are out there, the different genres that are out there as well, and to celebrate them with their learners. And then one of our greatest achievements, I think, possibly for this year, is the Young People's Panel, which was just held via an open call out at the beginning of the year. 22 young people came to us and expressed their hope of being part of the panel, and 9 of those were selected. We meet 3 times a year, and oh, by golly, their feedback so far has just been absolutely amazing, and just really, really valuable, whereby they give us insights of how we can develop the publishing of books in the future and ensure that the themes that they want to read about are present within the books. They can guide us on how to best reach individuals on and promoting a love of reading via social platform and book talk and so forth. So it's been a real insight into the world of young people. And I know you're based in the primary sector, but I just wanted you to know that it's there, because you might know of somebody who'd be brilliant. And we're looking for young people who love reading, but also young people who don't love reading, because we need to hear from those individuals as well. And then lastly, just upcoming projects, again, keep an eye out for them. So we've got the podcast, which is currently going through a bit of a rebrand. Again, it'll be aimed at young people, just to encourage them to pick up a book. We're going to be trying to work with influential people on Instagram and the social media, again, just to highlight and give book reviews on certain books to see if that can make a difference on reaching young people. The author visits, then, we're working really closely with Literature Wales for the Children's Laureate, so please get in touch if you'd like a visit from them. And also then we're working with the Mudiad Meithrin on a new 5 under 5, which sounds better in Welsh somehow, which doesn't happen very often. Pimp dan bimp in Welsh, whereas which again every term we're just highlighting books to celebrate and raise awareness of the different books that are out there for families who don't speak Welsh at home, are possibly just overwhelmed by the choice of books and not sure which ones are relevant for them as a family. So they're bilingual books, they're Welsh books, so it's just, yeah, a lovely opportunity to celebrate the books. And then lastly, sorry, I did say about the previous slide, but just an outlook to the future. Yeah, our love and passion is ensuring that every child has access to books, and I hope that some of the projects that I've highlighted this afternoon are showing that our love really in that way, and then to inspire more young people to enjoy reading, again through the Young People's Panel and so forth, developing a new generation of writers. So as I said, there's a wealth of opportunities there. It's just making sure that people know about them in a way, isn't it? And then to be able to collaborate with a range of partners such as the Mudiad Meithrin and also consortia like EAS is just a brilliant opportunity. So a huge thank you, and apologies, Kath, if I have gone over time.
Not at all. It's all incredibly valuable, and it gives a lovely context to hear about the older children as well as the variety of projects that are available both to schools and to families. It's fantastic. I'm really, really grateful for your time, Bethan. I know that there were a number of email addresses that popped up in the chat there, so I will put them all together in a list and send them through to you all together, especially because hopefully Nick, if you're ready to go in just 10 seconds, because I just wanted to start by thanking Nick for joining us from Risca Primary School today. One of the sharing practice events that is being offered for you this year, in fact, the first of the curriculum partner school sharing events that's being offered, is from Risca Primary, supporting reading progression and across the school through guided reading. The details are on the screen there, and I'll give you links to these meetings in a moment. Nick has very kindly is going to walk us through some of the key information that will be shared during that day. And whilst you're listening and watching, hopefully you'll be able to consider if there is anything that Nick talks about with relation to Risker Primary's reading curriculum that might be similar in your school, or you might be thinking if there's anything you'd like to know more about with regards to reading at Risker, and therefore would you be perhaps interested in applying to be one of the people who come along in November to find out more about it. So Nick, I hope you're happy to just bark instructions telling me next slide, so that we can I can run the slides for you. Is that okay?
That's fine. It's fine to bark because we've got a dog on the front of my slide there. So that was quite good, actually. Which I think I might have nicked these slides from somebody, so I beg your pardon. I've just put my stuff on them. If anybody's ownership.
I think they're from the Books Council of Wales, so you're very
there might be, so I apologise. Anyway, I'll be really quick, guys, because I know a lot of us have got a parents' evening coming up, etc. So I won't take too long. I just wanted to talk to you about what we could offer here at Risker Primary. In our breakout room, we all said we're all doing little bits and we're moving forward. Wouldn't it be nice if we all sat in a room with all of our little bits and said, right, we like that, we're not so keen on that, let's slide this bit together. So our bit is going to just be about guided reading. But of course, in terms of the overall school, a flavour of our school would be this circle here in front of you. If we start at the top, okay, we'd be looking at our reading overviews from our guided reading sessions, and they're linked to questions, which I'll talk about in a minute. And we've scrutinised those levels, and we found that after the pandemic, those levels had dipped. So I had a complete panic, and we talked about how we're going to get those reading levels back up to where they were. We had a look at teacher assessments. Did teachers actually understand what they were assessing and reading, which is an ongoing issue for all of us, isn't it? And so we looked at the reading records, which I'll show you in a minute, alongside the teacher assessments in our APP meetings, linked those up to the books, and then said, right, well, something's going wrong because they're not all linking up. So for us, that was really important. We created a skills list, which comes from the curriculum in terms of the progression steps, but also I can't quite get, I can't quite lose the old levels. So I made sure that we knew where we were in terms of what our teachers would expect in their year group, stage appropriately, so that when we're planning literacy lessons, but as well as our guided reading sessions, the teachers knew exactly what they were looking for. So going back down now, we've got the placemats. We created some new placemats I'm just going to show you. And then we focus on our high frequency words, our level questions, our reading across the curriculum, and our guided reading timetabling. And then when we had any time left, we put a little sprinkling of work on our library, and again, making sure there was that love of learning throughout the school. So thanks, Kath. So there's going to be nothing new about what I show you next. I'm sure you've all seen it before. This is our bread and butter. If any of our teachers or our LSAs, because we're lucky to have some LSAs who can support us, are reading with a group, they'd be looking at something like this. It's a big A3 sheet. They're all leveled. The colours on the left-hand side are all according to the levels. And what we've really focused on this year now, or what we're doing at the moment, is in that top of the sheet, when it says Q for questioning, we're looking at specifically what questions the teachers are using to generate the answers from the reading. Okay, so that's what we're really focusing on this time. Our readers are we're doing really well. We've got a nice lot of fluent readers, but we're thinking about just deepening those questions now so that their responses are a little bit better. Our national tests weren't quite where we were, maybe. So yeah, that's fine, Kath. Go on. We went over the old. Thanks, Kath. We went over the basics. Are our children being able to read these words? And if not, how are we going to support them to do that? We started with phonics, we moved on to our keywords, which are all leveled. Thanks, Kath. We moved on to our common spelling words as they got up through the school. We focused on those. We made sure that all of our staff that were delivering guided reading sessions knew what we should be reading in terms of what they should be understanding. And what we did then, we developed a tracker, thanks Kath, that we're using. It starts with Jolly Phonics right down the bottom and it moves into those keywords. And this isn't for people like me to say, why isn't your child doing that? It's for the teacher to have next to them in a guided reading session and think, oh, I can't quite understand why they don't get those sounds. I don't really understand what the issue is here with these words. Then we'll have a chat. And then we put in some intervention groups or a bit of support. So for us, those assessments of the sounds, the blends, moving into the words, that's where we're starting with our assessment that comes from our guided reading sessions. Does that make sense so far? Okay, so thanks, Kath. So these are our placemats that we've created, which look much more zhuzhy in real life. They're all little laminated sheets with a little ring I've given to everybody, so everybody's likes them in their guided reading file. And what we're saying is, let's put these down in front of us and think about the types of questions that we should be doing. We've got lots of NQTs, lots of new teachers, lots of returning to school teachers and LSAs who maybe aren't quite as confident as we assume we are. So let's just think about the type of questions we've been using. And now in our guided reading sessions, when we're comfortable with that, the children have access to these. And of course, we're asking each other questions. We're asking their peers a question. In our secretarial skills now, I do a guided reading group. And the children do a little mini guided reading group with the same book, and they're using these questions to ask each other. And they're saying, oh, Mrs. Rees, we smashed level 1, we're going up to level 2. I said, bring it on, guys, come on, let's have a go, let's see how we do it. And then we're circling the ones we don't get because they're all laminated, so they can't destroy my resources. So we're circling the ones we don't get, and then we're saying, well, let's work on those now. We'll put those in our warm-up in our literacy books. Okay, so we're going to make sure that we do understand that. Thank you, Kath. Sorry, I was just showing you that the levels they go to. Okay, and now that we're getting better at our guided reading, we're looking at those really tricky skills up there. And if we had a chat with our teachers, because we asked them what they needed in terms of guided reading support, and these words kept coming up. You know, if you said to me, I want my children to synthesize, you know, I'm struggling. I mean, as a literacy lead, you won't be, but there are some whose passion is maths that actually we maybe need to go back into staff training and think about, come on, let's talk about these skills and how we're going to get those from the children, if that's what we're expecting. And thank you, Kath. And the last one I'll talk to you about today, I think, is our guided reading set. Oh, sorry, Kath, can you just go back to that little video? You don't have to show the video, but what we've done, and you're either going to balk at this or you're going to applaud it, I don't know. But what we've done, we've recorded lots of guided reading sessions, and we've recorded good bits, and we've recorded bad bits. Now, the teachers didn't want me to show their faces for the bad bits, so I've done the bad bits. And then as a team, we've analysed why a guided reading session is good, why it works, and perhaps how we could improve it. And then what we need to avoid for the future. And I can't tell you, when I was doing it, how many of them you could see going, oh yeah, I do that in my guided reading session, because you just get into habits, don't you? So we've said now as a school, where we are now is we are going to set ourselves some rules for guided reading, what we do and what we don't, what we try to avoid. And as a whole school, we are, thanks Kath, last slide, I promise, we are making sure, of course, that all of those guided reading sessions are part of a whole school ethos about loving learning and loving reading. And this is where we are at the moment. In the top right hand corner, it's sorting out the library. That's my job. But everybody else, we're really engaged in guided reading and reading through the school. And if you'd like to come and have a look at any of those, if you want to take any of my resources to save you doing it yourself, I'm really very happy. Come and see us on our day, and I'd be thrilled to get the photocopier going and then or send you some bits and bobs, anything you need. Okay, thanks very much. Oh, we can leave that, Kath. The rest of it's they'll have seen that all before. You can leave me there.
Fantastic. It's obviously you think really carefully about what your staff needs, and then you implement it over time. I'm going to just thank Nick, and her email address is there if anybody would like to drop that down. As I say, Nick is hosting in November, and I'll share the date and the information again in a moment. But perhaps I could just ask you to take a moment to think about what you've seen with regards to what Nick is doing with the staff at Risker. And I think we'll move straight on to Maindy Primary before perhaps giving you a chance to talk to each other again, just for time. It's all valuable, very valuable, but more valuable than listening to me. So we'll cut my section short at the end to give you time to talk. But before moving on, and diolch again, Nick, because our next presenters are from Maindy Primary, one of our school number 3 of our 7 for this year. They are hosting a practice sharing event in January, and as you can see, we've tried to spread these events out through the year. And their focus will be on raising standards in reading, progress and assessment. And again, they're looking at what reading looks like in their school for their priorities and their community. And hopefully, Claire, are you there?
We are. Hi, it's myself and Darcy.
Thank you both very much indeed. Please don't hurry. There's plenty of time. We want to do justice to the work that you're doing. And I'll just hand over to you. Diolch.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. Well, can I just say before I start, it's just really reassuring to listen to everything that Dean and Lucia were saying, everything that Nick was saying. Like you said, Nick, there's so many similarities between what we're doing, but we've all approached it in a slightly different way. I first of all just wanted to start, I've seen a couple of faces that I know as well. Rodri DC and Claire Marshall Reddy will know Maindy Primary School really, really well, so this context slide will be nothing new to them. But just to share our context, really, our numbers have grown massively since 21 up to 23, but what you'll notice is the reason perhaps we need to think of pre-stages, which you'll see in our presentation, is because of the nature and the stage at which our children come into our school on entry. And I don't mean just on entry into nursery and into reception. I'm talking about when they're coming in with no prior schooling, and they might join us in year 2, year 5, and they may be working at pre-phonemic levels. So that's there just to really give you a little bit of context to our school. Next slide, please, Kath. Sorry, Dals, that was your job. It's okay. We've also developed curriculum vision, and the only reason this slide is there is just to show you that golden thread of learning section that's over on the right-hand side. And basically that golden thread is what takes us through all of our AOLEs and cross-cutting themes, but also we try and reflect on that through our approach to guided reading as well. So it's identifying the pupil needs, matched to the best pedagogical approach, which is why we've got such a range of things that we use, and then assess the impact of that. And I'll talk a little bit about summative and formative assessment as we go through the slides.
Okay, next, please, Claire.
Okay, everything that I've talked about, we've made sure we've looked at the things that we had in place in school, but then we've obviously made sure that we're going back to Curriculum for Wales. And it goes back to what Nick was saying about, I think, perhaps as experienced practitioners whose passion is for literacy and possibly particularly for reading and guided reading, we sort of take it for granted and assume that people know. And when you look at what assessment means now in new Curriculum for Wales, it isn't just assessing children at a given point and saying, well, that's their level. It's looking much more widely. And I think as it's seasoned practitioners, you would know that, but it's making sure that everyone's got that clarity and understanding. And something that we needed to look at is, why are we assessing? Why are you assessing the children? What information do you want to draw from that? And how well will that assessment inform the learning? And Dean spoke about it in earlier on about he was a reading recovery trained teacher, and he referenced Marie Clay. And if ever you've undertaken a Marie Clay assessment, observational assessment, you will know much more of the devil in the detail about what the things the children do when you do a benchmark and you do those follow-up questions. Why are they doing the things that they're doing? And that is the key to the assessment, not just to give them that summative, oh, they're a PM level 15. It's a, so what do they need before? What do they need after that? Okay, next slide, please. You'll notice in the next few slides as well that we talk about pre-stages to phonics. There's been a lot of discussion around phonics, a lot of discussion around high frequency words and teaching those children absolutely those core basic bread and butter skills that we need. But at Maindy Primary, and I think there are probably pockets of this across all authorities, there are children who are simply not ready for those phonemic stages. So we did some research and I looked at, I'm lucky enough to have been the early years lead as well as the literacy lead. My role now is progression and standards lead for the school. But because I'm part of the early years network, I've been fortunate to look at this document, which is the assessment arrangements for funded non-maintained nursery settings. But Gaynor Brimble, as the advisory lead on this, she will recommend this to your nursery settings and possibly leading that into reception. This curriculum and this assessment framework is going to work really well for us. The messages are the same. When you look at the assessment strands for Curriculum for Wales and you look at the assessment strands in the non-maintained nursery settings guidance, it's about assessment should not be a one-off event. Children should be identified who need extra support or challenge, and they should be purposeful, manageable and proportionate. And I've pulled out those keywords, which links to our golden thread, really. Identify, notice and respond. And your early years practitioners will be really used to doing this, but it's about applying that into your guided reading sessions as well. So Nick had that lovely placemat, didn't she, about where the children were, identifying what they're doing in their sessions and then knowing what to respond with next. Okay.
Yeah, next, please.
Next, please, Kath. Oh. Again, I've taken this from, and this again leads into our work that I'm going to talk about the pre-phonemic stuff. These are the assessing children's skills and capabilities in literacy from the non-maintained nursery documents. And if you pull out the reading strands, you'll see the key ones that link into that. So we're using this framework to assess the children and understand how do they handle books? Do they join in with those rhymes? If they're not joining in with those rhymes, what diet do we need to give those children? How can we enrich their experiences to enable them to start engaging? And I'm not just talking about new to English and EAL children. I'm talking about children who perhaps are shy and quiet and retiring. What else do they need within that diet? So I've just pulled out from that assessment framework the ones that I think, again, it's my opinion, but based on hopefully some prior knowledge about which ones link to reading. Next slide, please, Kath. What we also did, and Claire Marshall-Reddy, who's on this network, will be very familiar with this. When we did some training, we did 3 PL days around reading. We focused on PM level 1 to 16, 16 to 30, and post PM 30. But we pulled out all of the descriptions of learning from progression step 1, and the next slide goes into progression step 2, and the following slide goes into progression step 3. And that was just really to support new teachers to have that discussion around which ones are actually the really explicit reading ones, because then all of the stuff that we had in school, like our PM level objectives, we could then tie that into the description of learning and give new teachers, or perhaps teachers who move year groups or supply teachers, whoever that was, something to hook into. And then if you scroll through, Catherine, you've got progression step 1, 2 and 3. And then if you go on to the next slide, you'll see, oh, sorry, that's right. Yeah, go on to that one. And Darcy's just going to quickly talk to us about, about our reading continuum.
Yeah, so after assessing our children, and there were pockets of children that we were saying, right, they're just not making any progress. Set of sounds, like they need something else, they need a different diet, even though we've done it in all different ways, shapes and forms of trying to get the phonics going, they just weren't ready for it. So, and we identified that actually there were pockets of children across the school with those needs. So like Claire mentioned earlier, we have children coming to us in year 5 with English as new language, and they haven't had all of those skills, really, those building blocks that they need to get them to start reading, basically. So we created the reading continuum at Maindy, and it outlines the child's journey just to support them in becoming independent readers. So we've looked at what needed to come before the children were going to really be able to pick up those phonics. And really broken it down. So we've broken it down into auditory awareness of rhythm and beat, developing rhyming skills, and then developing phonemic awareness. And it's very, very big, obviously, down in nursery reception, but we have children in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, all the way up who are still working in pockets of this. So throughout the school, there'd be children dipping in and out.
And we've got things like rhyme time clubs going on through the school. And you might think, gosh, some of our older children wouldn't engage that. We don't really find that with the children that we're involved with at the moment. We're not finding that. We're finding that it's giving them actually a hook into something that they can do rather than the things that they can't do. It's giving them a confidence, basically, and going back into their classes with a smile on their faces, hopefully. So you'll see, obviously then our thread leads into Read, Write, Think, high frequency word development, lots of the lovely things that Nick was showing there and the things that Lucia was showing. Obviously those things are going to be very, very similar. And on the next few slides, you'll see how we approach our high frequency words, etc. This is just a section. Darcy's going to continue to talk about this. But this is basically those 4 pre-phonemic stages, and it widely falls into 4 pre-phonemic stages. And we've basically created like a toolkit for staff. And you'll see there's a book just in the top right-hand corner called L is for Sheep. Lots of the research has come from that particular book because we found it did what it said on the tin.
Yeah.
It gave us a breakdown of the descriptors and gave us some lovely example activities. And we've given those basic outline of activities to staff, and then they've gone away and they're starting to develop their own sort of bank of resources. So when, hopefully, if you're able to join us on that day in January, we'll be able to show you some of that in action and possibly give you some more meaty handouts to go alongside that. You'll be able to take or some presentations and things, but you'll basically see, what does that mean? What does auditory awareness mean? Because if you'd said that to me as a new practitioner, I wouldn't probably know where to start with that. Awareness of rhythm beat, well, what can I do for that? I don't know what that means. And I'm not going to read through, or Darcy's not going to read through all of those sections, but it was more just about raising awareness that if you've got children, when on our trackers, on our summative assessment, it was so frustrating because you'd see children just tracking autumn, spring and summer, they were still pre-readers. And it wasn't for want of trying and wanting those children and giving them the diet that we thought they had. But if we're saying that they're still pre-readers, we need to show what their journey is before that. And hopefully that will make sense. And you'll see there's some collections of books next to those statements that just give you an example. What will we be doing? You'd be doing your nursery rhymes, reading those lovely rhyming stories, those lovely ones there, the acorn wood ones, where the children can say that rhyming word as you're going through, and then building up to those more developing rhyming skills in the lovely Julia Donaldson books, etc.
With all that repetitive language, we focus quite a lot on traditional tales as well, don't we, which helps to build that, all the repetitive language patterns that we find in them.
Okay.
I think you said it all for that
I
one.
think so.
Yeah.
Next slide,
next,
please, Catherine. Oh, hang on, I need to click on my next slide. Okay, so, and as we've said, it doesn't mean that we don't assess children. Of course, we do snapshot assessments and we use those then. And like Nick was saying, in their APP time, they discuss them. We do this in our pupil progress meetings. So you'll see there's a pre-reading tracker, a PM level tracker, a read, write, think tracker. There's also, because of the type of school that we're in, there's a stages of language development tracker, which is something that if you got GEM support in your school, they will be doing something called a language acquisition record on your children that breaks down their oracy, reading and writing skills. So again, that's another resource and another toolkit you can look at to support you in their progression. But yeah, so we teach Read, Write, Think. We follow the programme as it says on the tin, but also we're taking children thinking, well, actually, are they managing that? Is this the most effective thing for them to be doing at this point in time, or do we need to take them out and do something, give them a different diet? And you'll notice just next to that Read, Write, Think mat, you'll see they're very small, but we can share these separately. Like Nick was saying, all of our high frequency words, when we get into the sort of bread and butter of teaching those high frequency words, they've all been pulled apart and they are separated out into PM level 1 and 2, PM 3, 4 and 5. So it gives teachers a hook to start with, which are going to be the key high frequency words. If I'm teaching a child at a PM level 5, I need to make sure they've got that quick recall of reading and writing, possibly not the writing yet, but the reading of those tricky words to make it so that the mechanics of reading at that level are more straightforward and you can focus on some of the other skills that you need to be looking at. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and I literally just popped that slide in because we're talking about benchmark, and I thought, oh gosh, you know, I'm sure everybody here will know what benchmarking is, but that's the way that we're assessing our children. So I just put a visual up really. And then there's a slide just after that, Catherine, that again builds on what Dean was saying about making sure you've got the zone of proximal development he talked about, and I've written it in my notes, and I call it the Goldilocks analogy. So when you're doing benchmarking, you're looking for that instructional level. So you're making sure that it's not too tricky, not too easy. And it isn't just about that saying, oh, they're a PM15. It's looking at those bits I talked earlier about. Why do they do the things that they're doing? So that little box in the center there that talks about meaning, syntax and visual is unpicking with staff. Oh, they're doing this. Oh, why might they be doing that? And what could you do next to support them in their reading? As a very whistle-stop tour of benchmarking.
Very.
But yeah, so obviously if you need any more information on that, feel free to ask.
Next, please, Kath.
I keep saying, oh, and as Nick said, but I think it's really nice when you've got people singing in the same hymn sheet. We've gone back to old things that we were using, and that isn't about accountability, as Nick said. It's not about saying, oh gosh, if all of your children by the end of reception aren't reading PM level 5, 6, 7 and 8, then you failed at your job. It's about saying, well, actually, we've got children in year 1 and they're still reading at what would be the old expected levels of reception. And that's okay. Have they made progress? Yes, hopefully. If they haven't, why haven't they made progress? What can we do about that? And in that big bold box I just said, when making a judgment about a child's attainment, it's important to consider evidence gathered from a range of contexts. The grid is useful, but is not intended to be used as a standalone tool for assessing a child's progress and or performance. But it does give you that sort of holistic overview of your school about where you might expect your sort of children to be, and then working up and down as needed. Next slide, please, Catherine. Okay. Formative assessment. So obviously your benchmarking is summative, but it is formative as well, because you're looking at what it's telling you. And what we've done in school, and we've briefly shared those above, but we've got, and we'll look at these in a second. In school, we've got a diet of these things. So we've got PM level objectives from PM level 1 up to PM 30 plus that basically break down the skills that you need, and they are all underpinned, or I should say vice versa. Curriculum for Wales underpins all of those skills. We've then got the top 10 reading responses and sort of building on those further, and I'll talk a little bit about those later. We've got there's a typo in there, questioning grid, please ignore that. And then we've got that underpinned by Vipers, and there's a slide on that a little bit later for anyone who's not familiar with Vipers. And Claire Marshall Reddy, if you're there, feel free to chip in, because this was your area of expertise. And then benchmarking. So there's a range of things that we're using. Yes, there are standalone assessments. You take the child out to do that benchmarking, but also there might be running records and benchmarking going on in guided reading sessions. You'll be planning for Vipers. So you'll be using the children's responses back to assess how they're getting on their reading. Questioning grids, how well are they responding to that? And that links really nicely, Nick, to your placemats that you've been looking at as well. Yeah, so that's that. Next slide, please, Kat. Okay, when I'm talking about the PM objectives, this is what I'm talking about. And it's basically just to give, what am I looking at those specific PM levels that obviously links back to your benchmarking kits, which again links into your colour bands as well. But it just gives people like a scaffold really when you're planning that guided reading sessions. What am I expecting the children to do? And some people come to you and say, well, what does that mean, Claire? What does that mean when we're looking at that? So we've had lots of discussions around what does that mean, and what would you plan into that guided reading session to make sure you're able to attain that skill.
Okay, next please, Claire. Thank you.
And what Upper Phase have done this year, they've gone through that, and they've just basically in the front of all the children's guided reading books, they've put these sort of, I suppose they're like a placemat really, but it's just, again, is to make sure that those skills are at the forefront of teachers' minds when they're planning their guided reading sessions. So they're using all of the things like top 10 reading response, their approach to Vipers, but they've got the skills there just to keep reminding themselves where those children are working at, and then it's linked to the progression steps. So all of those statements into there, they're taken from our PM objectives, but then Upper Phase have added in, well, this is emerging understanding within progression step 3. So we've just got an idea of how that links across to progression steps. Next slide, please, Catherine. Okay. We started a journey with this, and we'll see how we get on with it. But basically, Upper Phase have been looking at, following on from training that Claire Marshall Reddy was doing with us in school. They've taken that now, and they've looked at the sort of traditional methods, really, I suppose, that you would use, and effective methods for reading responses in Upper Phase, particularly starting at progression step 2. And again, I keep talking about Upper Phase. That's our old language of Key Stage 2. Now, I know this is progression step 2, which you'd be considering for year 1 and year 2, perhaps in the majority of schools, but actually we've got lots and lots of children in Upper Phase who are working at progression step too. So this was a starting point for us. And it was taking those top 10 reading responses and then linking them. Where does that fit in the descriptions of learning, the statements of what matters, and basically using those, and they are there with diets basically. So we're looking at those, and then we're going to be developing them for progression step 3. And then also we've got to remember that in our school we do have children who are dipping into progression step 4 as well. So there is such a wide range. So we will be developing those alongside basically to support staff when they're planning. Next slide, please, Kat. Oh, okay. The questioning grid, when we did the PL days, there was a lot of work on the questioning grid and linking it into Vipers, but just as a standalone tool on its own, it's really, really useful just to kickstart staff in their planning. And as the square at the top in the left-hand corner, I'm doing really on my left and my right, I don't normally know those. But in the top left-hand box, you'll see, as you move away from this box, the questions become more complex and more challenging. And you can see that straight away. But it's a really nice tool when you're looking at the Vipers section next to you. You can basically use that grid to plan the types of questions you might need. But again, it links back into, I think, from what Nick has shared with us, the sort of play smart questioning that they've been working on. So they're perhaps a step ahead of us. We're giving some sort of more of a teacher autonomy for this, and we've handed this over into teachers' plans. They're developing those questions before their guided reading, but actually be really nice to put something a bit more formal in place to support perhaps new staff who wouldn't be as confident to do that. Yeah, next question, next slide, please. Then there's the lovely Vipers. And again, this is something that there was a lot of work done on in upper phase in the summer term. Staff are still unpicking this and working really hard to bring this into their guided reading sessions. But basically, there's a document that if you click into that hyperlink, Catherine, it should open up something called Vipers in a Nutshell, I hope.
I'm not going to be able to do that because I've had to go a different way of sharing my screen today. So unfortunately, it's not going to happen. Sorry.
That's okay. I can share that somehow, Catherine, and perhaps we can share it on the grid. But basically, what that does, if I open it up on my screen, and I can just, I know you can't see this, it's not very helpful, but it basically it's in a table, and it's got why do you do Vipers? It's got the strands down the side, so vocabulary reading, inference, prediction, explanation, retrieval, sequencing, and summarising. Where does it link to the descriptions of learning? But what does that look like? So it gives you, for example, can they recognise high frequency words in the text? Can they accurately decode text-specific vocabulary? So it's just giving staff a much more teacher / pupil user-friendly version of what Vipers looks like, hopefully, she says. And then I think, okay, on the next slide, what staff found really useful, and this again was thanks to Claire Marshall-Reddy, she popped in some visuals just to show staff really clearly, because when you have a lot of language, there's a lot of language in descriptions of learning, there's a lot of language in the PM levels objectives. These just showed a little bit of more, what does that look like? And again, does link back to what Nick was doing. I think, Nick, tell me if I'm wrong, but with your placemats, what does that look like in practice? What are the tangible questions I can get at different levels through the school, the children, teachers being used to ask really frequently, but also teaching the children how to do it as well. And then next slide. And then we've just popped in some recent examples, and you'll see there's a variety. This is your 4 pupil looking at PM17. So when you look at that, you might in your school say, gosh, I would expect a much higher level of written response to that from a year 4 pupil. But their reading level is often higher. So if you think of reading level PM17, if you went back to that overview grid, it's quite a low level for a year 4 child, but actually for this child in their journey, that's a really good level of progress, but their writing isn't going to reflect it. So we've got to think about what is the most logical reading response that child can access and do some form of written response. And we just popped a few examples in really. So again, PM20 in your school, you might not consider as acceptable as a PM20 for a year 6 pupil. But for us, we've got to look at that journey of that child. Where did they come in? I don't know this individual child, but the fact that they're able to access those and respond to that in a succinct manner, I think that's wonderful. But yeah, I think that's it. There's a couple of examples after that on the following slide, and that's the end of that. So please don't judge it and think, oh gosh, I would expect a year 6 child to be reading way beyond PM20. For us, that child may have come to us in year 3 as a pre-reader, or year 4 as a pre-reader. So that actually is such good progress for that child.
Claire, Darcy, diolch yn fawr. Thank you so much. That nobody, I can guarantee nobody is sitting there saying, oh, that's not good enough for a year, whatever child. This is the whole point of the progression steps, isn't it? That it's what can the children do, where are they, and catering for them at that ability. So that's fantastic messages. I'm very, very grateful. I think what we'll do, rather than break for a moment, if everyone's okay, I'm just going to take you through one or two key bits of information to share with you, because I don't want you to go away without some of that. With regards in particular to the sharing of our curriculum partner schools, as I say, 3 of which that we've heard from today. So the link on the slide takes you to the Supporting Our Schools website on the professional learning brochure page. And in there now, as well as the professional learning brochure for all of the central training that's been offered across the EAS, there is now additional supplementary offer, which is all of the training, all of the sharing of practice and professional learning that's been offered by our partner schools across the region. And you can see on the slide there the contents page. So there are curriculum partner schools, health, wellbeing and equity, and so on and so forth. When you get these slides, you'll be able to go in and access all of the offer for LLC English and Literacy, which looks a little bit like this. So this is my version so that you can see that today. We've heard from Nick at Riska. Her session that she'll be leading on the 21st of November and you can see the course code, so that when you go to the supplementary brochure, you can search for and find these particular offers. Mainly, we've just heard about the raising standards in reading on the 30th of January. Next time in our February meeting, we'll hear from Kate at Glaslough, and we'll hear from Joe at Eveswell. And in the summer, we'll hear from colleagues, including Ree at Clyde. They're talking about their speaking and listening offer. We have 2 additional PLs that will be led by Glan Usk and Pentrapoith. Details are just being firmed up now, but as soon as that information is finalised, I'll get that put into the team space so that you can start to register interest to attend. A little plea, if I could, that if you are interested in attending any of the sessions, because these are being hosted in the schools, obviously numbers will have to be limited due to access and parking. If you want to attend one of these meetings, we would encourage you only to apply for the ones that you're absolutely confident that you could attend. And I say that, I know with the best will in the world that you might be interested in attending many of them. I know I would, and I'm lucky enough that I'll be able to sneak my way into many of them. But by saying that you wish to attend and by accepting a place, we do that on the understanding that you will attend. So please could we ask that you check with school diary and with release before that you apply to attend any of these sessions. So just a little bit more information about 2 events in particular. Glaslough will be offering a developing progression in non-fiction in June. This is a sharing practice, but also a training event, because Kate at Glaslough, who is the literacy lead, will be leading this session, and this will be sharing current development practice that is happening in the school this year as part of their school development priorities for 2023-24. So this will be sharing an ongoing development journey that's happening in the school, and so will be partly training as well as sharing of practice. And the same it will be the case with Pentrapoith. We mentioned earlier, and I know the head and Lucio have mentioned, this year, as part of their development priorities in the school, they'll be revisiting and engaging in some inquiry work through the school about the use of reciprocal reading. And it's that they will be sharing with us in the summer term. Details, as soon as I have them out, I'll share across the team space. So that will be live sharing of practice, but also an element of training, so that it covers both of those elements. And where I'm particularly interested in this, because in the ESTIN thematic report that came out in May, looking at developing people's English reading skills from 10 to 14, so looking at those end years in primary and into secondary, in the document from ESTIN, it talked about readers reading with teachers and support staff as part of guided reading approaches in schools, and seeing positive action in schools, and looking at, as they called it, pre-reading, but also reciprocal reading. And Dean described this a little bit earlier on. Reciprocal reading being that approach where pupils, particularly at the top end of a school, often with more able readers, are being given roles to develop their reading and their discussion skills together with a text, perhaps as part of a guided reading session, but targeting those older, perhaps more able readers, where pupils are trained in the roles of being predictor and questioner and clarifier and summariser, to be able to run those sessions independently of the adult, of the teacher or the teaching assistant, and to be able to develop that ability to run those sessions themselves. So really looking forward to engaging with Pentrapoith this year and the work that they're doing. And just to advertise also, I know that we have mentioned before in our network meetings, and we've popped this in the files section previously, but if you haven't looked at the ESTIN thematic report, and reading is on your school development plan and it is a priority for you in the school, then I recommend the report as quite a useful document, particularly in relation to the case studies that are shared in there. And as always, really useful to see what other schools are doing to develop their approaches. And if you're interested, an ESTIN team shared a live session focusing on that ESTIN report a few weeks ago. And the recording of that session is now available on YouTube through the link on the screen when you get the slides. It's well worth a look. It's only a half-hour session, which is always important, and you could have that on in the background as you're doing other things, but it'll just give you a flavour of the key messages from the ESTIN report. So always worth a look. Just to let you know also, on the 21st of November, there will be a cross-regional professional learning event taking place, where focus is on presentations from a variety of AOLEs. Our session for LLC is taking place on the 21st. You can either attend live between 10 and 11:30, and the links are on this slide when you get it, or you can attend live between 3:45 and 5:15. And that webinar is looking at progression in LLC, and we have the St Julian's cluster from our region who will present at that session. So really excited and interested to engage with that session. It will also be recorded, and that you will be able to watch it after those sessions if you're not able to attend live, which we know is really difficult. Again, I will advertise that session again closer to the time. But the work that the St Julian's cluster have been doing together to develop vocabulary, teaching of vocabulary for reading comprehension, is really, really interesting, and it's well worth a listen. Just also to alert you to a professional learning offer that's coming through us in the team in the spring term. My lovely colleague Leanne Avery is leading on this, and this ran last summer as well with the Cardiff Met researcher Ellie Bristow, who's absolutely fabulous. And we had a small but perfectly formed group of primaries and secondaries that engaged last year, and we're offering this again. This is, as you can see on the screen, 4 sessions, 2 in person, 2 online, with fantastic expertise from Ellie Bristow, with a focus on teaching and developing etymology, mainly at the top end of the primary and into the secondary. But as we know, if we're thinking about English teaching, if we're thinking about reading, if we're thinking about writing, if we're thinking about spelling, if we're thinking about literature and comprehension, etymology, the meaning of words, where they originate in the world and how that impacts on their meaning and the meaning of vocabulary is a massive area. And we know that Welsh Government have shown a lot of interest in this particular programme and are keeping a really close eye as to whether it's something that they can offer more widely. If it's something that you think you're a member of your team or you might be interested in, there are a couple of places left and the link is on the slide to register your interest, but we're really excited to run that again this year. If in doubt with any of these things, just drop me a line and I can send you directly. Just to alert you, and I'm really going to wind up now, that we have sharing sessions in the summer with regards to our Reading Reconsidered programme that started a couple of weeks ago. We've got a number of primary and secondary schools engaging in the Teach Like a Champion reading programme. It's been fantastic so far, very high quality training. We will be offering sharing sessions on this in June and on the Writing Revolution, which again, we have a number of schools engaging with us this year. So look out for those if you're interested in finding out how that went and finding out more about those programmes. Okay, I am going to stop because I'm aware that we've run out of time. You can see as I flick through the slides, there's more information about the reading teachers that's ongoing and another reading group in the region. Can I please ask you if you wouldn't mind taking a moment to reflect, particularly on the fantastic presentations from our 3 schools and from lovely Beth Ann at Books Council for Wales.